Welcome to Module 13 on fraction operations. Right now, make sure you've got your notebook out for note-taking. Note-taking is important so that you have access to what you're learning without having to rewatch the videos. Plus, you can use your notes on the quizzes. Agenda for Module 13 on fraction equations, which is a pretty short module for today. We're going to talk about clearing fractions in an equation. We're going to solve two-step equations with fractions and solve a multi-step equation with fractions. So you want to first start by getting a new page in your notebook for Module 13, Fraction Equations. You want a new topic, clearing the fractions in an equation, and you're definitely going to want to write this down. Multiply by the common denominator, which I'm going to abbreviate CD for common denominator, to remove the fractions. You don't have to write from an equation. So if I have 24 equals 2/3 W, I want to multiply by the common denominator. Well, the only denominator is 3, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. 3 times 24 becomes 72, but 3 divided by 3 becomes 1, and so 2 times 1 is 2, so that's 2W. This is now just a one-step equation. We divide both sides by 2, and so W equals 36. For this one, we're going to multiply both sides times 5, because the only common denominator is 5. You pause the video and see if you can finish that one now. You should have seen that 5 divided by 5 is 1, and so 1 times 3x is 3x. 15 times 5, I'm going to get my calculator out and do 15 times 5. That gives me 75. We're going to divide both sides by 3, and so x equals 25. Now, what if there's more fractions in your equation? We want to look for a common denominator for 8 and 4. Well, remember when we learned about common denominators, we learned that those are the same thing as the least common multiple. So multiples of 4 are like 4, 8, 12, and 16. Multiples of 8 are like 8, 16, 24. I actually didn't need to write all those because the least common one is 8. They both have 8 in common. Instead of changing to a common denominator, I'm going to do every term on both sides by the common denominator. So I'm going to do 8 times 3. I'm going to do 8 times 3/4 x. I'm going to bring down my equal sign, and I'm going to do 8 times 5/8. Everything on both sides got 8 times bigger. That has to be true because algebra equations are like a scale, and so they have to stay balanced. You wouldn't go to the gym and just work out one arm. You would want that to stay balanced. So even though this isn't a fraction, it still needs to get 8 times bigger, so that becomes 24. But for this one, we divide by what's on the bottom to cancel. 8 divided by 4 is 2, and 2 times 3 becomes 6x. Divide by what's on the bottom to cancel, and multiply what's left, so that becomes 5. We're going to subtract 24 from each side, and we get 6x equals negative 19. We're going to divide both sides by 6. Notice that you don't want to write this as a decimal, and so we're going to just leave it as a fraction. There's nothing that negative 19 and 6 share as a factor, so we're going to stop there and say that that's fully simplified. You pause the video and try this one on your own. Start by finding your common denominator for 3 and 6. All right, welcome back. You should have found that a common denominator for 3 and 6 are just 6. So our common denominator is 6. You should have done 6 times every term. I did 6 times 7, 6 times 2/3 x, and 6 times 5/6. 6 times 7 is 42. For this one, we have to cancel. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and negative 2 times 2 is negative 4x. For this one, 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 1 times 5 is 5. We're going to subtract 42 from each side. The 42's cancel out. We're left with negative 4x equals negative 37. We're going to divide both sides by negative 4. And again, it says do not use decimals in your answer, so we're just going to reduce that. A negative divided by a negative becomes a positive, so that becomes 37/4. Let's try a few more. We want to start again by finding a common denominator for 3 and 4. You pause the video and see if you can find the common denominator now. Common denominator you should have found is 12. So we're going to multiply every term by 12. So that's 12 times 2/3 x plus 12 times 4 equals 12 times 3/4. You pause the video and see if you can simplify this now on your own. Welcome back. You should have tried to simplify using canceling. 12 divided by 3 is 4, and 4 times 2x is 8x. 12 times 4 is 48. There's nothing to cancel there, which is why I don't cancel anything. 12 divided by 4 is 3, so 3 times 3 is 9. We're going to subtract 48 from each side, so 8x equals 9 minus 48. 9 minus 48 becomes negative 39. We're going to divide both sides by 8, and so x equals negative 39 over 8. You pause the video and see if you can do this one on your own. Start by trying to find your common denominator. A common denominator for 6 and 4 is 12. I know we use 12 over here, but it's the same common denominator for 3 and 4 as it is for 6 and 4. So we should have done every term by 12. So I'm going to multiply 12 times 2, 12 times 3/4 is x, and 12 times 5 is 6. 12 times 2 is 24, but here we have things to cancel. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9 with the x. 12 divided by 6 is 2, and 2 times 5 is 10. This is now a two-step equation, so we're going to subtract 24 from each side to get the like terms together. I'm left with negative 9x equals negative 14. Divide both sides by negative 9. The x's cancel out. A negative divided by a negative becomes a positive, and that should be 14 over 9 there. And you're done. This video will be available on Haiku if you need to rewatch, and will be available on each skill for Module 13 in ALEKS. Don't forget to use the explanation in ALEKS to help you. After you complete all the topics by selecting Continue My Path right here, when you're done continuing my path for Module 13, then you'll need to take Quiz 13 by going to Assignments. Have a great day.